everything's now working except for this box here where we want to see the number of suitable instructors being updated as we put the data in here. So we need to use a function that is going to count the number of suitable instructors. Now you may have used this before in an earlier exercise where we're going to use a DCount function. So it's equals DCount because we want to count how many instructors there are. And what we're going to do is we're going to count star, which means it doesn't matter which field that we're counting, and we're going to count this from the instructor table. So we've put star in speech marks, instructor in speech marks. What this will do so far is count all the records in the instructor table. So if we have a look at that, we can see that there are 17 records. This is regardless of what we put in here. So now we need to start looking at our criteria. So we need to put in one of our criteria. So I'm going to put the first one is going to be that the field called charge. Okay, so that's a field called charge. Now if we have a look at our instructor table, right, it is called charge. So we're going to say the field called charge has got to be at least the minimum charge, or we could say charge is going to be between, okay, the min charge and the max charge, and we'll finish at that point. Okay, so let's have a look at how that's going to work. It's coming up with 16 now. If I change this to 17, now it's not refreshing at the moment, and we need this to refresh every time we change the data in here. So we're just going to deviate for a minute and have a look at how we can make this refresh every time we change the data. What we want to do is we want to what's called requery. Okay, so that's re-question everything that's on this form. And to do that, we need a macro. So we're going to create a macro. And all that macro is going to do is requery. So I have an option there called requery. And I'm going to save my macro. And we'll call this my requery macro. And click on OK. If we close that, what we need now is for each of these form controls to run that macro when they are updated. So I'm going to select them all. I'm using the shift key to select all of them. And I'm going to look at their properties, and we'll have a look at the event. And what we've got an event here is after update. Okay, so if we change this so that after we've updated the data, we'll run the requery macro. So let's save that. Okay, so I'm going to change this now to 16, and watch, look, that has changed to 10. Change it to 17, that's changed to 5. We're not looking at any of this data yet, so we now need to move on to the other criteria. So we've said so far that for the criteria, the charge must be between the minimum charge and the maximum charge. But we're going to say, and as well as that, whether the instructor is willing to work weekends, which is called weekend. We just scroll across and make sure it's called weekends, and that was called WE tick. So we're going to say and weekends equals WE tick. Now we're going to do these one at a time, because by doing them one at a time we can make sure that they are actually working. Because if we get a mistake later on, it can cause us some problems and we don't know where our mistake is. So when I tick this and untick it, you can see the number of instructors changing. So that's good. Okay, next one is going to be our gender. Now remember, we're using the same criteria here as we used for the query. So we're going to say, and gender is going to be like, okay, the gender combo. Remember that the gender combo can also be any, and that if we look at this, we stored the word any here, in the second column, but it actually stores star in the first column, and the first column is the bound column. So that's the data that it returns. So if we have a look now, it's not worked. Now this is good because it's come up with an error, and we know that that error has been generated by this bit here, where we're saying and gender is like the gender combo box. So first of all, we need to look at this and see what it's been named. Okay, and we can see that's been named gender combo, so that's correct. But actually the error is to do with the speech mark. So the speech mark for the end of a criteria is after WE tick, but it needs to be right at the end of all the criteria. So I'm going to put that speech mark in. Now I'll be honest with you, I didn't realise I'd made that mistake until just now, but I'm leaving it in this tutorial because you need to see how mistakes can be made and how they can be corrected. So now when we have a look at this, that's 4. If we change it to male, it's 2. Okay, so let's go back. We've got one more to do, and that is a minimum hours per week. And we'll put it in front of the speech mark this time. So we're going to say and, okay, the minimum hours, or if we have a look, right, it's max hours on here. Okay, so we're saying and we're going to put it in square brackets because it's 2 words. Max hours must be at least what we've put in for the minimum number of hours. So is at least, and we called it min hours. We'll double check just by clicking on this one. We can see it's called min hours. So now if we run this, our count is there, it's working. If I change this to 4 hours, that goes down to 1. If I change it to 1 hour, it stays at 2. If we go for female, we've still got 2. If we change this to 14, we've now got 6 people. Change that to 3 hours, we've now got 4 instructors. I'm going back to design view. Obviously I need to resize this, but before I resize it, I'm going to make sure this is in front of that button, and we'll screenshot this function. So you'll screenshot that, and you'll need to annotate each part. You'll need to annotate and explain what a DCount does. Explain that star is used to show any field or count any field, it doesn't matter which field. That instructor is the table that you're using, and then you'll need to explain each of these criteria that you've used. So once you've done that, you can resize this back again to there. We can even align it on the left hand side if we want. It won't be under format, it will be under text alignment. There's text alignment. And now when we look at it, there we go, it's doing that, and it's changing every time we change data in here because we set that requery macro, which you'll also need to evidence. So you'll need to show what the requery macro does. So go to design view, show that it just does a requery which refreshes a screen, and you'll need to show that each of these, okay, is linked to the requery macro. You just need to show how you've selected them all using shift. So we go back to design view, so you can show the fact that they're all selected, and you can show on those that the event is set to be the requery macro. So a screenshot around there would be very good. That's the end. You'll still need some other annotation for 3D part 4, which will be about how the query works and how the report works as well, and how all about the named form controls. You'll need to look at the similar but different tasks and look at the example in the answers for similar but different tasks of how that evidence has been presented.